I can't get over the irony that the very last video I did was for the Marvels, and the very next video I'm doing is for a Martin Scorsese movie. It's just kind of hilarious. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Today, our movie in the middle is The Killers of the Flower Moon. Killers of the Flower Moon tells the true story of the mysterious murders of the Osage Nation for money and oil. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, Lily Gladstone, and Jesse Plemons. So I was trying to think of movies that I could review that were Thanksgiving related for the holiday, and the only other one I've seen is Thanksgiving.
Bless you.
Allergy season, you know. Fucking weather. But it was nice today, huh?
Did you just say fucking?
So I wanted to shield you from that one. But I figured, I saw Killers of the Flower Moon, I haven't gotten to review it yet, so I figured this would be perfect timing. So before the trailer actually came out, this was one of those movies that it had like one image, like one still from the movie to promote it for like 2 years. Like, I did not think that this movie really existed outside of that image. Kind of like The Whale did as well, which, funny enough, both star Brendan Fraser. So pretty much everything about this movie is incredibly well done. Namely, the acting. That's probably the best thing because it is this drama. It's a very true story. So most of it's going to be dialogue and conversations and very deep emotional moments. The acting is phenomenal. Leonardo DiCaprio, fantastic as ever. In this one, it's funny because he kind of plays like a dumb, dim-witted kind of guy. And I haven't really seen him play that a whole lot. I think he might have been a character like that in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, but I haven't seen that movie, so I'm not sure. And it was interesting because they made him look and act likable enough, but he also looks kind of mean at times. Like, it's just like his demeanor. I don't know what they did, but they made him look like kind of this in-between uncanny valley of like, I'm not sure if I should trust him or not. I was kind of hoping to see another iconic Leo freak out, and he does a little bit, but not to the extent of like Don't Look Up or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Of course, De Niro is as great as ever. He's terrifying in this, although he sort of just plays like the same type of gangster leader character in all these Scorsese movies, but I will say I thought his character in this one was way more interesting than, say, like The Irishman, so I thought that that was really, really well done. And of course, Jesse Plemons steals the scenes as soon as he gets in there. That's probably why they waited half the time to actually get him in, because they knew he was going to take over the whole movie. He just has this dry but authoritative feel about him in every role that he plays. And Lily Gladstone, who I've never seen in anything else, I'm not actually sure what else she's been in, she was amazing as Molly Burkhart, both in the independence of her, and like she has this authority about her, but also in the empathy and in her relationship with Leo's character. And this is something that I feel that they did very well in this movie, that Scorsese portrayed the Osage Native Americans in just the perfect way, because he didn't portray them as incredibly prideful about their wealth and what they have, but he also didn't portray them as helpless victims either. Either of these, to one extreme or the other, would have not been truthful and would not have been helpful to the story. But he did portray them as being able to hold their own, being strong, having this strong culture and family to rely on, but also victims of this insane violence and the anger and frustration and the discouragement that comes from that. I mean, it was very, very well done. And kind of linked with that, the dynamic of the relationships between the Osage people and white people in this town were very interesting, because there is obviously all of these murders going on, so there is something that is very discordant and not coming together between the two here from a couple different people. However, the rest of the town, there's all these relationships, all these marriages, these mixed children, all of these sequences that show that a lot of them do have relationships and do get along very, very well. And there's even a sequence where there's somebody who is hired to kill one of the Native Americans, and he takes a while to do it because he actually kind of hangs out with them. Like, I didn't understand this at first, but one of my friends like mentioned that it makes it feel like, you know, he's starting to see him as a person. They see the Native Americans, some of them, as people, but then they kill them anyway. It's a very weird complex because it's like, which side is it? But it's also like a little bit of a gray area for a lot of them, because they're hired to kill them, and yet they're like, wait a minute, they're kind of they're kind of good people, but most of the plot of the movie and everything that happens in the dynamics of these relationships comes into play with Leo's character, who is kind of in this weird place. He's pinned between his wife and his uncle. His wife, Molly Burkhart, who he marries because his uncle tells him to, because obviously he's after the oil and the money and everything that comes with that. And obviously it feels like this should be a very like one and done, like, no, his uncle's bad and his wife is good. But again, this is not a black and white movie. It's a very gray movie, and it helps that Leo's character is not the smartest guy in the world. So he's able to be easily manipulated by his uncle, but he's also very in love with his wife. And it's just this weird, like, what is he gonna do? And this carries out for a while, over all of these events and murders and everything that happens. But that just, in general, was just very interesting to watch. Of course, the cinematography in the movie is absolutely beautiful. All these really incredible shots, like the slow-mo that you see in the trailer of the Native Americans dancing around in the rain of oil. It's very slow-mo, it's very beautiful. And then also, like, there's another one from the trailer that's like a bunch of silhouettes of people within all of these flames that are burning down this farm. It's just, I mean, of course, it's just amazing. And going along with that, the editing, there's a lot of really interesting things that Scorsese decides to cut to that sort of feel like an Adam McKay sort of deal, where it's like true stories, and he's cutting to a lot of like museum clippings or whatever. But specifically, I liked in the beginning, there was one where there's like this whole festival going around in this town, and people are taking like old timey pictures, which I guess at that point was just pictures, and it cuts to a lot of these cool shots and those photographs of Native Americans, and I wonder how many of them are just like real photographs that they used. And every so often he'll also cut to like a scene that's just like a ceremony that the Native Americans do, and just seeing it play out for a couple minutes. A lot of people would be like, oh, why are we seeing all this? But it's just to kind of show the culture. Lastly, there was one very, very cool scene towards the end, which I didn't understand what was going on at first, but it was very cool how they sort of wrapped up the story. It's right before the last shot, and it's a scene that it's just cool. It's just really interesting. I don't want to say what it is, but you'll know what I mean when you see it. My only middle is the length. The thing is that I think it's it's not a terrible thing, because if you're going into this movie knowing what you're getting into, it really is good, because it just immerses you into this town, these people, their lives, where it could just be another one-off movie of murders and violence and FBI and everything. It isn't exactly, because you sit in it a little bit longer than you would normally, so you're just kind of ingrained, like I said, with all these people and their lives and the actual event that's going on. It definitely does feel it after a bit, even if you have that in the forefront of your mind, like I'm going to be sitting for 3.5 hours. Obviously, it does feel it around the 2.5 hour mark, but I will say I think it does, for being 3.5 hours, go pretty quickly. It paces itself very, very quickly. It's not super, super slow in most spots. And I think it just has a lot of positives that comes with it. And, obviously, Martin Scorsese will be glad to know that some people are willing to sit for 3.5 hours to watch some of these bigger movies. Any lows I have with the story, I can't really have them for the movie itself, because it's a true story. It's what happened. If you base it off a true story, as long as you're doing it tastefully, doing it well, you can't really blame them for the story, because it's just true events. But I did think it was kind of weird that, there's all these things going on, these murders, and it seems pretty obvious who's behind it, who's doing it, and yet no one can either figure it out or do anything about it. And in the movie they do a good job of like showing Molly doing as much as she can to make the murder investigation happen. And what I did not realize until I looked up the movie after is that this is actually one of the very first investigations that the FBI did, that before they were the FBI and they very quickly turned into it. This was one of their first investigations. So I guess it does sort of make sense, because big cases like this weren't really on the radar that much until around that time. And it was only because of what Molly did. She goes to DC and she goes and begs, please come investigate this, that things actually happen. So really, I guess my only low is that there's a lot of times where there's time skips, even if it's a couple days, might be a couple weeks, and it's not really conveyed. So we're supposed to just sort of understand this, so it made some things confusing, because, like, for example, there's a scene where someone goes off with another person, and in the very next scene, they're dead. Apparently, there was, like, a few days at least that happened in between this, but, like, Scorsese should know, like, basic editing. I know he does, but from one scene to the next, the mind would just link that, okay, these things happen one right after the other. Maybe it was on purpose, I don't know, but it was a little bit jarring and confusing for some of the time. Like I didn't know exactly what was going on here and there, just because apparently time is supposed to have passed and I had no idea. So overall, Killers of the Flower Moon was really, really well done, tastefully done. It was quickly paced, but it allows you to feel what this movie is, which I think a lot of these movies, again, could feel like a one-off. Okay, we know what's going to happen. This is, it's going to go to a court case, or like they're going to get charged or whatever, or, it's like, yeah, there's going to be killings, but then justice is going to come out, whatever. It might not be a black and white ending, but it'll turn out fine. But I think with these kind of movies, you need to sit in it a little bit longer. And even if it's quickly paced, it can't just be over like that, because then it's like, what's the point of making it? So I think Scorsese did a very good job of like making it so it's not a slog to get through or anything, but you do feel what's going on. And again, the acting, everything technically about this movie was just incredible. I'm going to give Killers of the Flower Moon a 3.5 out of 4. Well, guys, let me know what you thought of Killers of the Flower Moon, where it ranks among all of your other Scorsese movies that you've seen. I personally think it's way better than The Irishman and deserves the length that it has. Hope you guys have a great, safe Thanksgiving with your family and friends, and just eat a ton. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.